Good morning, Marshall community. I'm going to be continuing with our read aloud using figurative language and Peter Pan. Of course, Wendy was very elated over Peter's cleverness, but she knew that he would be elated also and very likely to crow and thus betray himself. So at once her hand went to cover his mouth. But it was stayed even in the act, for "Boat ahoy!" rang over the lagoon in Hook's voice. And this time it was not Peter who had spoken. Peter must have been about to crow, but his face puckered in a whistle of surprise instead. "Boat ahoy!" again came the voice. Now Wendy understood. The real Hook was also in the water. He was swimming to the boat, and his men showed a light to guide him. He had soon reached them. In the light of the lantern, Wendy saw his hook grip the boat's side. She saw his evil, swarthy face as he rose dripping from the water, and quaking she would have liked to swim away, but Peter would not budge. He was tingling with life and also top-heavy with conceit. Sounds like figurative language to me. What does top-heavy with conceit mean? What is conceit? Conceit is like pride or arrogance. So what does it mean to be top-heavy with conceit? "Am I not a wonder? Oh, I am a wonder," he whispered to her, and though she thought so also, she was really glad for the sake of his reputation that no one else had heard him. He signed to her to listen. The two pirates were very curious to know what had brought their captain to them, but he sat with his head on his hook in a position of profound melancholy. What is melancholy? How do we think Hook feels right now? He's just crawled out of the water. "Captain, is all well?" they asked timidly, but he himself answered with a hollow moan. "He sighs," said Smee. "He sighs again," said Starkey. "And yet a third time he sighs," says Smee. But at last he spoke passionately. "The game is up," he cried. "Those boys have found a mother." Affrighted though she was, Wendy swelled with pride. "Oh, evil day!" cried Starkey. "What's a mother?" cried the ignorant Smee. Wendy was so shocked that she exclaimed, "He doesn't know!" And always after this, she felt that if you could have a pet pirate, Smee would be the perfect one. Peter pulled her beneath the water, for Hook had started up, crying, "What was that?" "I heard nothing," said Starkey, raising the lantern over the waters. And as the pirates looked, they saw a strange sight. It was the nest I have told you of, floating on the lagoon, and the Never Bird was sitting in it. "See," said Hook in an answer to Smee's question, "that is a mother. What a lesson! The nest must have fallen into the water, but what, would the mother desert her eggs? No." There was a break in his voice, as if for a moment he recalled innocent days when but he brushed away this weakness with his hook. What weakness are they referring to? Innocent days. What is the narrator referring to? Days when Hook was what? A child. He had a mother. How do you think he was different then? Smee, much impressed, gazed at the bird as the nest was borne past. But the more suspicious Starkey said, "If she is a mother, perhaps she is hanging about here to help Peter." Hook winced. "Aye," he said, "that is the fear that haunts me." He was roused from his dejection by Smee's eager voice. "Captain," said Smee, "could we not kidnap those boys' mother and make her our mother?" "It is a princely scheme," cried Hook. And at once it took a practical shape in his great brain. A practical shape in his great brain. What does that mean? Is this a literal or a non-literal phrase? It's a non-literal phrase. What does it mean? What is he doing in his brain? We will seize the children and carry them to the boat. The boy will be made to walk the plank, and Wendy shall be our mother. So he has just come up with a what? Again, Wendy forgot herself. Never, she cried and bobbed. What was that? But they could see nothing. They thought it must have been a leaf in the wind. Do you agree, my bullies? Said Hook. There is my hand on it, they both said, and here is my hook. Swear. They all swore, and by this time they were on the rock, and suddenly Hook remembered Tiger Lily. Where is the redskin? He demanded abruptly. He had a playful humor at moments, and they thought that this was one of the moments. That's all right, Captain, Smee answered complacently. Complacently means resignedly, calmly. We let her go. Let her go, cried Hook. 'Twas your own orders. You called over the water to us to let her go. Brimstone and gall, thundered Hook. What cozening is here? His face had gone black with rage. What does it mean, black with rage? What does this mean? But he saw that they believed their words, and he was startled. Lads, he said, shaking a little, I gave no such order. So he's very confused. It is passing queer, Smee said, and they all fidgeted uncomfortably. Hook raised his voice, but there was a quiver in it. Spirits that haunt this dark lagoon tonight, he cried, dost thou hear me? Of course, Peter should have kept quiet, but of course he did not. He immediately answered in Hook's voice, Odds, bobs, and tamers' tongues, I hear you. In that supreme moment, Hook did not blanch, even at the gills, but Smee and Starkey hung to each other in terror. Who are you, speaker, stranger? Speak, Hook demanded. I am James Hook, replied the voice, captain of the Jolly Roger. You are not, cried Hook hoarsely. Brimstone and gall, the voice reported. Say that again, and I'll cast an anchor in you. Hook took a more ingratiating manner. If you are Hook, he said almost humbly, come, tell me who I am. A codfish, replied the voice, only a codfish. A codfish, Hook echoed blankly. It was then, but not till then, that his proud spirit broke, and he saw his men draw back from him. We have been captained all this time by a codfish, they muttered. It is a lowering to our pride. They were his dogs, snapping at him, but tragic figure though he had become. Why has he become a tragic figure? He scarcely heeded them. Against such fearful evidence, it was not their belief in him that he needed, it was his own. He felt his ego slipping from him. Don't desert me, he whispered hoarsely to it. In his dark nature, there was a touch of the feminine, as there is in all great pirates, and sometimes it gave him intuitions. Suddenly, he tried the guessing game. Hook! Have you another voice? Now Peter could never resist a game. He answered blithely in his own voice. I have. And another name. Aye, aye. Vegetable, asked the Hook. No. Mineral? No. Animal? Yes. Man? No, the answer rang out scornfully. Boy? Yes. Ordinary boy? No. Wonderful boy? To Wendy's pain, the answer that rang out at this time was yes. So why is Wendy in pain? What do you think she's feeling right now? What is Peter about to do? Is he about to reveal himself? So how do you think Wendy is feeling? Are you in England? No. Are you here? Yes. Hook was completely puzzled. You ask him some questions, he said to the others, wiping his damp brow. Smee reflected. I can't think of a thing. Can't guess, crowed Peter. Do you give it up? Of course, in his pride, he was carrying the game too far, and the miscreants saw their chance. Yes, yes, they answered eagerly. Well, then, he cried, I am Peter Pan. Pan! And in a moment, Hook was himself again. Smee and Starkey were his faithful henchmen. "Now we have him," Hook shouted. "Into the water, Smee! Starkey, mind, take him dead or alive." He leapt as he spoke, and simultaneously came the voice of Peter. "Are you ready, boys?" "Aye, aye," from various parts of the lagoon. "Then lam into the pirates." The fight was short and sharp. First to draw blood was John, who gallantly climbed into the boat and held Starkey. This was a fierce struggle in which the cutlass was torn from the pirate's grasp. He wriggled overboard, and John leapt after him. The dinghy drifted away. Here and there a head bobbed in the water, and there was a flash of steel, followed by a cry or a whoop. In the confusion, some struck at their own side. The corkscrew of Smee got Toodles in the fourth rib, but he was himself pinked in turn by Curly. Farther from the rock, Starkey was pressing slightly, and the twins hard. Where all this time was Peter? He was seeking bigger game. So who is he seeking? The others were all brave boys, and they must not be blamed for backing from the pirate captain. His iron claw made a circle of dead water round him, and from which they fled like affrighted fishes. But there was one who did not fear him. There was one prepared to enter that circle. Strangely, it was not in the water that they met. Hook rose to the rock to breathe, and at that same moment Peter scaled it on the opposite side. The rock was as slippery as a ball, and they had to crawl rather than climb. Neither knew that the other was coming. Each feeling for a grip met the other's arm. In surprise, they raised their heads. Their faces were almost touching as they met. Some of the greatest heroes have confessed that just before they fell they had a sinking feeling. Had it been so with Peter at that moment, I would admit it. After all, he was the only man that the sea cook had feared. That Peter had no sinking feeling. He had one feeling only, gladness, and he gnashed his pretty teeth with joy. Quick as a thought, he snatched a knife from Hook's belt and was about to drive it home when he saw that he was higher up on the rock than his foe. It would not have been fighting fair, and he gave the pirate a hand to help him up, and it was then that Hook bit him. Not the pain of this, but its unfairness dazed Peter, and it made him quite helpless. He could only stare, horrified. Every child is affected thus the first time he is treated unfairly. All he thinks he has a right to when he comes to you is to be yours is fairness. After you have been unfair to him, he will love you again, but will never afterwards be quite the same boy. No one ever gets over the first unfairness. No one except Peter. He often met it, but he always forgot it. I suppose that was the real difference between him and all the rest. So what is the real difference? So when he met it now, like it was the first time, he could just stare, helpless. Twice the iron hand clawed him. A few moments afterwards, the other boys saw Hook in the water striking wildly for the ship. No elation on the pestilent face now, only white fear, for the crocodile was in dogged pursuit of him. On ordinary occasions, the boys would have swum alongside cheering, but now they were uneasy, for they had lost both Peter and Wendy, and were scouring the lagoon for them. What does scouring mean? What are they doing? Are they looking for them? They're searching diligently. Calling them by name, they found the dinghy and went home in it, shouting, "Peter! Wendy!" as they went, but no answer came, save mocking laughter from the mermaids. They must be swimming back or flying, the boys concluded. They were very anxious because they had such faith in Peter. They chuckled boy-like because they would be late for bed, and it was all their mother Wendy's fault. All right. So, I want you to recap the adventure in the Mermaid's Lagoon, and then come up with your 3 examples of figurative language, and tell me what you think is going to happen next. All right. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.